We got 4 lands. They're going to be tapping for most of the colors that we need, so this one's good. Let's keep it. Up against Raph and Mikey, Troublemakers. So they're going to want to ramp and then put giant creatures on the board. Okay, so for us, let's go with Secluded Courtyard, and we'll choose Mutant. It should cover most of our creatures, including our commander. Here, let's go for the tap land. And then I think next turn we'll probably play Rocksteady. Alright, they play out their Lightning Greaves. Interesting. Their creature already has haste, but perhaps they're just wanting to protect it. Alright, so here let's play a Swamp. And then let's play out Rocksteady, which will let us get Bebop, Skull, and Crossbones. So it searches up that particular card for us. Alright, so we drew one of our 2 counter spells here, but it is a for non-creature spell only. Let's go ahead and attack. And let's play out Mona Lisa because that will allow us to tap for any color. And actually, let's put the counter on her because that'll let us tap for 2 mana instead of 1. So they're not ramping as hard as I would expect. But here we go. They're playing Map the Frontier, searching for up to 2 basic land cards and putting them on the battlefield. So that will put them up to 6. So let's pay 2 life. We're playing turtles, so I don't want to think about it too much. Let's put the counter here. Let's attack. But unfortunately, they'll be able to attack with their creature next turn. And we won't have up negate mana. So I guess shocking in that Hallowed Fountain didn't really do anything for us. Alright, so they play a Tali. And then they're hoping to attack here. Let's see. Let's read some of our cards and see if there's anything that we can do. We can attack for a large amount of damage. Is there anything that buffs our creatures? Doesn't look like it. I guess we'll just play Krang the All-Powerful. And let's put the counter here. And let's attack for 12. They certainly can block with a Tally, but this has Trample. So that lets us do a couple of things here. We can give our creature hexproof and indestructible. Let's see, we can also put out a Death Toucher. I kind of like that. We'll decline because we've already got both of our creatures out. Or we already played both creatures and this one died. So we'll decline there. And then we'll have a Death Toucher up just to make it not too fun for them to attack into us. I mean, they're going to do it, but it just ensures that one of their two creatures will die. Alright, so they play this out. They go to equip the Lightning Greaves as expected. And they completely missed, and so they concede the game. Interesting. Well, we're not going to win too many games with this, but as you saw, the ways that we can win is if we have little to no interaction on our opponent's side, and on a combo kill type thing like this, they just completely whiffed, and they didn't get much value out of their attack. So there you go. This is not a keepable hand, so we're going to mulligan this. We'll wait for our opponent and our cards, and we're going to have to mulligan yet again. This is a little bit better. I think we'll drop the most expensive things, which should be Venus toward Between Worlds. So anyway, while we're waiting to play here, would I recommend crafting this deck? And I would say resoundingly no. It took me several weeks to gather all the cards needed to create this deck. This was one of the decks that Wizards had as a pre-constructed deck that you could buy in the store for several thousand gems. As I said, it took me over 3 weeks, and a lot of the cards that I needed to craft, such as this April O'Neil Live on the Scene, you would never use it for anything else. So it's not really something that you can use in Timeless or any of your other decks, so it's just for Brawl only. And the problem with this deck is a lot of times we get put in the hell queue, so you can see right here that they've got us up against 5-color Eldrazi, so I noticed that we get paired up against a lot of unfavorable matchups. So these are some reasons why I would recommend not crafting it unless you really, really like Ninja Turtles and you just want to have fun. But even with that being said, I would say that this deck isn't very fun because it doesn't win a lot. I'm going to probably look at the stats later, but I'm estimating win percentage to be under 25%. And so here, the opponent just hangs it up for some reason. I can't imagine. They must have gotten color screwed or something like that. But anyway, we'll have to take the wins where we can get them. Good game. All right, so this is the passable hand. We got 3 lands and able to play everything on curve. We even got Mona Lisa Science Geek, which I guess is one of the better cards in our deck because it allows us to get any of our 5 colors. So we'll keep that. Up against Beladros Witherbloom. Has flying at the beginning of each upkeep. Create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with whenever this token dies, you gain 1 life. And then you can pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate only once each turn. Alright, so sequencing here is going to be pretty important. So we don't actually have a swamp or a mountain. Let's go ahead and play the Turtle Lair, which will let us cast a ninja or a turtle spell, but notably not a mutant. So in this case, we'll need to play out Mona Lisa. For my opponent, they played out Insidious Roots, which can be somewhat of a combo-y type piece. Alright, let's go ahead and play out Mona Lisa and hope that we get another land that will not be tapped. Dragonskull Summit will be tapped. So let's hope for something a little bit better. They're thumbing over our Mona Lisa, but instead they elect to play a mana dork of their own. Alright, so if we attack, they can easily block. I think what we will do is we'll go ahead and make a mutagen token. And then let's play out Lita. So my plan here is to get as many bodies out on the board as possible because our game plan is just to attack with Heroes in a Half Shell as best as possible. And they play out a Bebop and Rocksteady. So it says whenever it attacks or blocks, sacrifice a permanent unless you discard a card. So they destroyed our mutagen token. Now we can still attack with the heroes because it does have Vigilance, Menace, Trample, and Haste. So let's go ahead and put a +1/+1 counter on Lita. And so if they block, let's see, if they block, sacrifice a permanent unless you discard a card. So they probably want to discard cards, so let's just go ahead and attack with our Heroes in a Half Shell. Which means that we'll get to put a +1/+1 counter on him. And we'll draw a card. So here's kind of the problem with the way this deck plays out in my estimation is you just play out the big creatures and hope that your opponent doesn't interact. And again, you're put in the Hell queue, so chances of them interacting is very high. And they played out a Grave Pact, which means whenever a creature you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature of their choice. So that is not wonderful. So let's play out Arcane Signet. And let's assume that the Heroes in a Half Shell is going to die. We do need to read all of our cards. So what is the best thing? Drawing a card or searching up another creature? We can play out two creatures here. So let's put a +1/+1 counter on Lita. We'll play out April O'Neil. Let's scry one. I mean, this is a creature. I don't think it's really what we want. So here, let's go ahead and swing in. And they will probably double block the heroes, as expected. So we'll just sacrifice our least favorite card, I guess. Not least favorite, but least impactful. Crustacean Commando, I think, has already done its job. So we will sacrifice the Commando. And we will sacrifice what? Probably the Lita. Or actually, it's probably April O'Neil. Lita's getting pretty big, so. Alright, so we drew our singular board wipe, which is Vanquish the Horde. So they play a Sanguine Brushstroke. So they conjured a Blood Artist. And this will let them, if they sacrifice a blood token, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Alright, so we can actually play our heroes in a half shell once more. And we'll go ahead and put a +1/+1 counter on Lita. And we will swing in once more. I think this time we'll sacrifice the Game Master. We should be able to draw 2 cards. Let's think about this. Let's sacrifice the Lita because Michelangelo will put counters on other things. I misread it. It'll put a counter on itself. I thought I could put it on Mona Lisa to tap for more colors. Pretty decent common, I would say. So now opponent is in quite a bit of trouble. Regardless of their Grave Pact, our deck is good at spamming out a lot of small creatures. And so they're going to have to probably spend a removal. So we will sacrifice these 2. And we will discard 3 cards. I think we'll discard these 3. And we will gain a life from this land. We'll play out the Rat King. And so now, if we draw any creatures, they will take enough damage to die. But let's see what they got. They do have some life gain. So they're certainly not able to pay 10 life here. I don't care how much life they gain. So it looks like they play out a souped up, nice looking version of Voldaren Bloodcaster. Alright, so they want us to sacrifice 2 creatures of our choice, which will end up making us sacrifice all of them. But it looks like they made a mistake, and it's something that I missed as well. Let's go back to that. So they thought that they would have us sacrifice everything, but because we had the Rat King, it says whenever Rat King or another non-token creature you control leaves the battlefield, create a 1/1 black rat creature token. So when we sacrificed those creatures, we got rats out of it. So therefore, we didn't have to sacrifice our last heroes. Even if we had enough lethal damage on board. So Deck's been doing very well considering how bad I think this is. We need a mulligan here because we've only got 2 lands and 2 of our colors. This one's a little bit better. They don't really have any way of dealing with Codas, so this is going to be one of those Hell Q matches that I'm talking about. Codas is indestructible, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. So we don't have a terrible lot of counter spells and or bounce spells, so chances are the Codas is going to run wild and you're going to get to probably see the weaknesses of this deck. Even Death in the Family won't take care of it because it says exile target creature with mana value 3 or less. Unfortunately, Codas is a 4. Alright. Let's go ahead and play the Steam Vents tapped, and we'll play the Featherbrain Filcher. And this is a 0/2 flyer. Whenever it leaves the battlefield, create a food token. So it's just a cheap flyer that can enable the sneak mechanic, which we do have a couple of those. Janika's Technique is one of those. So whenever you sneak something else out, it'll deal 2 damage to each creature, but unfortunately that won't do much for us here. I think at this point we're going to just Cowabunga. Look at top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal a mutant, ninja, turtle, or land card from among them. Put that in your hand. And rest go in the bottom in any order. So this is somewhat of an answer to the Codas. But we're going to have to pay, that's a very expensive activation cost. So to play it for 3 and then pay 3 in a black to exile it for good. So that is that's not going to be early enough, I don't think. Alright, Destiny Spinner, we can take care of that. It says creatures and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. So why don't we just get rid of that. And so Tainted Treats isn't going to do much because, again, this is indestructible. Makes it very difficult to do anything. So here, let's go ahead and play Lessons from Life. So we'll draw 3 cards and put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So if we draw a land, we can put it on the battlefield. And it looks like we did. So that means that we should have all of our colors next turn. And I can't believe my eyes. Opponent hung it up because they saw what we could do, and they just weren't getting the Codas out there fast enough. That is wild. All right. Up against Katara the Fearless. And this is from the Avatar set. And she says, if a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Alright, this is keepable because we've got 3 lands, and then we've also got an Everything Pizza, which can search for a 4th color. So, lead it off on Blood Crypt tapped. Chose Hallowed Fountain in the last second. doesn't really matter at this point. We don't have too much to play at the moment. And so we're already in trouble because they've got a creature that taps for mana. And it says each land and ally you control has tap, add 1 mana of any color. Alright, so we'll play out Everything Pizza. And what are we looking for? I guess we will get a mountain. Looks like we'll have most of our colors, but I don't think we're going to be able to deal with the Katara, so... Let's play our 1-3. We'll get a mutagen, and I guess we'll go ahead and crack it and put it on the Genghis Frog to make it a little tougher. Now, Katara won't be able to attack through it, but they've got 5 mana currently. And they've also got an abandoned air temple, which is going to be a problem. So we might have to spend our entire next turn putting Katara to the top of their library. I'm not sure. Opponent is deeply considering their next move. Now, I wonder if my opponent just left the game for some unknown reason. It definitely wouldn't be Salt for this one. This is the most saline-free deck that I've ever played. Extraordinarily fair. It's chock full of creatures, 1 board wipe, 2 counter spells. Can't get much more fair than that. Alright, so we'll end turn. And this may be a non-game, but I'm going to force them to do something here. As soon as they pass priority, I'm going to return to the sewers. Suppose we could make an argument for doing this on their upkeep, and perhaps also putting the Great Divide Guide into their hand so that they get less mana. Yeah, no idea why they quit, but it appears like we are 5-0. Alright, if you've made it this far, let's talk about the deck a little bit. So, again, the commander is Heroes in a Half Shell. It's WUBRG, and it has Vigilance, Menace, Trample, and Haste, and whenever 1 or more mutants, ninjas, and or turtles you control do combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures and draw a card. So, we want to flood the board with a lot of creatures, and we got to hope that we don't get interacted with, because the way that this deck was pre-constructed for us is that there are almost no counter spells and 1 board wipe. So Vanquish the Horde takes care of things, I guess, if our plan fails, but at that point, then it's probably too late. We do have a little bit of targeted removal, like Death in the Family, that hits some things, but not everything. And again, with the counter spells, we got the Negate. We've also got the Ooze Spill, which is a 3 mana counter spell that also creates a mutagen token. So I would say craft this deck only if you want to burn wild cards, because the way that this has played out for me is with all the rares and mythics that are in here, it feels like the deck is weighted to where we're putting the hell queue a lot of times, but we don't have ways of dealing with opposing boards all that much. So we have a ton of creatures. I believe the creature count in our deck is something like 41. And then there's a couple little interaction spells. As I said, we have Death in the Family, and then we've got this Retro Mutation that can take care of something. We can do a little bit of bouncing. And basically, we just want to get a lot of things out there, swing in, and hope to win. So if you really like Ninja Turtles, I would craft this deck, but I definitely wouldn't look at this as any kind of tier deck. I looked at Untapped GG for my actual win rate, so even with those 5 wins, we're still sitting at 45%. So take that with a grain of salt, but this is not a salty deck whatsoever. It's just kind of a pure fun deck. So if you like turtles, craft it. If you don't, I would pass this one up. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Salt Mine Gaming. I will talk to you on the next video.